Yeah, yeah. The second prompt. So, quick round of reflections before we take these questions on the readings. We can actually go around. Maybe Sally or that you fly when your dreams come alive. That was a good one, Sally, but I think it can help us get more funds as well. I think if you can, but yeah. So, quick reflections, Pooja, Dauha, Sally, Anna. We can start with anyone. Please jump in on the readings bit. Have you been able to go through any reflections, quick reflections that stand with you on in the readings? Yeah, stand with you.
Can you please one more time tell me something? You mentioned my name, but I could not hear because of connection problem. Marta kaçırdı. Türkçe.
Yeah, Sally. So, any reflections on the readings that we had? So, this in this section, we are just spending some time on quick reflections on the readings for the module. Yeah.
I'm like when the worst pupil was asked to retell a story about you, because it is the student starts justifying somehow that, oh, you know, I left my homework or something like. But I will cut it very short, and I would say that I am very bad girl because I did not manage to update and to follow your updates because of my situation. At home. Now I'm doing my best to be with you, not to consider me impolite who left something like. That's why I am now with you to hear from you some questions which I can answer now, or something similar. But as for reading, I admit that I even did not open this email because of my it's my. I know that it's somehow incorrect, let's say, to talk about your private problems, but I don't try to talk it. But I would say that my family situation is too difficult because of something, and that's why I have a very ill family member. So that's why I need to take care with him, and that's why I could not manage to follow you, and my huge apologies, but I will do my best as my situation will give me opportunity to do. Sorry again, and now I will be with you to discuss.
Sally, you're not the only one, so don't apologize. We are all variously busy, but we are glad that you were able to join. So relax. We are all in the same page on this.
It is not nice of my side, because I remember well how we the first meeting was so nice and let's say successful, because you focused on my problems, and I appreciate it too much. But now the reality is like that. So thank you for listening to me.
No, thank you for sharing, Sally. But
I'm so sorry, Sally. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for everything gets better soon. Nanish, can you hear us now? I think you're dropping in and out. Oh, perfect.
You can, Nanish. Just you can activate your microphone. Okay, please. It's mute. Your microphone. It's okay now.
Yeah, I can hear you. I was so. Any reflections on the readings? We're still on the first prompt. Yeah, Pooja, please.
See, I read it once before. Initially, after our first call, I was so energized and I really liked it. So I really went through the first module. I think two things that stood out for me. One was this peer-to-peer fundraising, which is often we don't leverage the power of our own peer networks. So I really found that to be very interesting. And the concept of digital fundraising, it has really stuck in my brain, that how do you now, post Corona especially, how do you do transform your digital platforms into fundraising platforms. So these are the two keywords that really stuck with me. Thank you.
Uh, Anna, anything from your side?
I'm really sorry. I have to apologize. I did not follow. I didn't have time to read the modules because of my vacation, quarantine, and whatnot. But I can catch up if it's possible.
Not a problem. Not a problem.
Thanks.
Yeah. So maybe Astha or Dauha.
So the things that stood out for me, one, I want to really appreciate the way they've structured the readings and the case study. Very reflective and very crisp as well. So there's like a lot to pick on, but I also noted down some words that stood out for me, including deep listening, strategic partnerships. There was one in which they were talking about how they used this partnership with Cartier by using their symbols. I think that's that's really smart, because I think linking the two and approaching fundraising from that perspective, I thought that was really good. And I agree with Pooja what she was saying about digital fundraising, but I'm also thinking now that space is also going to be very overwhelming. So while we need to move there, I'm just curious to know that within that spectrum also, what are the strategies to stand out and still be relevant? And then there was another point about ethics-based fundraising and when to say no. So if you've gotten opportunities where you could have raised funds from, but what were the places that you said no, and whether there were mechanisms in place that you knew that these are the things that we're going to say yes to, and these are the places we're going to say no to, and how do you get there? So, and also another thing was that they were at some point they were talking about how you also need to be plugged into the ecosystem of other not-for-profits, because in all likelihood you can't practically achieve or do everything on your own. So you got to also have those kind of partnerships that eventually help you in fundraising as well. So just two bits from my end.
Thanks, that's useful. So I think I'll share a couple of takeaways that I had. I think the module largely is talking about the need for having a diversified funding base, and also the trajectory that organizations follow. I think the Britspan model of identifying your own fundraising model and probably traversing that journey of diversifying your income revenue streams is important. So what my takeaways were that largely all organizations, especially when they start, typically go through a very similar process, and identifying having an understanding of what works for a particular organization slash geography slash thematic area, as the Britspan model shows, definitely helps you to plan raising your finances. So that is something that the framework actually helped me visualize. So we'll actually move forward. In case there are any other thoughts on readings that uh, someone would like to share, but we can then move to other questions that are important for fundraising and actually are fundamental uh, to fundraising. And we can pick Sally's organization for this discussion as well, because we've done some strategic thinking in terms of the mission, vision, the outcomes, the theory of change that we put together in the first assignment. So I think 3-4 things which are important. One is definitely, what are your programs and activities that you want to deliver in near future, and how do they actually try and tie into your strategic goals. So I think that's fundamental in terms of uh, what is your strategy plan for next 2-3 years, and that definitely shapes your fundraising strategy. Is That's also very fundamental. So I'll pause there in terms of what we did for Sally's organization, but we can actually try and revisit that theory of change that we put together, and try and uh, evaluate that what is it, uh, what are these strategic goals and aspirations for the organization, and what are the plans that we want to deliver.
Can I say something about the write-up that was shared, I think it was 2 weeks ago, concerning the mission statement, theory of change, and all that. I found the paper to be greatly written out and clear. And maybe my observation would be that it mentioned too much human rights, which is the core of the work, of course. But I think some other words could be used to nuance the wording and to ensure that maybe the same message is brought, but without using that terminology, because then it amplifies the work of the organization. For example, the word empowerment, I think could have been used more in the theory of change. And the objective of the organization could be rephrased to talk about empowering of youth, in many ways, and 21st century skills, which are maybe more catchwords now than focusing it a lot on human rights in a bit of a narrower sense.
Yeah, I think that's a very useful and important point, and aligning with uh, more catchy, more phrases which clearly communicate the purpose of the organization, rather than probably say a vague term like human rights. Uh, you know, uh, is very important. And thanks, Asta, for actually opening up the theory of change and sharing your screen. So, any other thoughts on this, Sally? I think we are looking at in terms of so next 3 years. What kind of strategy that do we put in place of ensuring that women are involved in income generation, that they're involved in social political institutions. uh, so it's more about theory of change and narrative weaving that we will have to do in order for us to be able to also identify prospective funders. uh, yeah.
As I understand, you are asking me this question.
Yes, some reflections on this in terms of next 2-3 years strategy planning. How are you looking at clarifying your mission vision further? We've
Yes.
already put the theory of change there, but yeah, it'll be useful to discuss this a bit more.
Yes, but it is not a narrow topic, let me say so, because it needs some thorough discussion. I mean, discussion in details. But personally, I've read some things like in the shared screen, and I would say that only fighting against, let's say, domestic violence, or let's say to try to somehow resist this pressure that comes from gender equality is not enough. I quite agree with you with these written norms. And I would say that the point that we should empower the rights of women that will enable them to be the independent part of the society, because when they find themselves in society and they find some works, and they if we persuade people, for example, in regions to involve, let's say, Georgia is so very funny country in terms of diploma, because every single person has this diploma, because majority of population go to universities, and let's say they they always try to graduate from this university. Don't ask me how and these details. I also have, of course, my idea, but it takes us far. But finally, they start, majority of ladies start to go to the, let's say, kitchen, because if you ask typical Georgian men that where is the place of women, they would reply you without any hesitation that this place, the best place of women is to raise up children and to go to the kitchen. So the strategy that includes, let's say, fighting against this kind of concrete cases, which is already very up, growing, and we have a big number of it. It is not enough. We should think about empowering the women as an individual, and also do training to enhance the knowledge how to become, let's say, a person who has equal rights and who has equal power to be part of perfect part of the society. So it can't be it should be politics, but it is another problem in our reality, because in politics we have not majority but whole percentage of men that is not so acceptable for me as a woman, because I think that we do have smart women who can change the world better than they do, parliamentarians. And but now it is also should remark that we have president a lady who is not she has just name and surname Georgian, but she even can't talk in Georgian language, and it's very something funny. And at the same time, I would say that she was, let's say, brought in this post like a post, without any mission. It means that it is misuse of women's power, because I know many women are at the same position. They let's say hold different kind of let's say posts, without asking anything. They are just like a Barbie, and they are women, and maybe someone needs them to show that they are just women. As for theory, how can I see development of it, and the strategy which I suggested you first time, it was training in regions. It served to the point that I would start from the youth to, let's say, plant to their mind that they should change their misvalues. I mean, misvalue is not the right word there, maybe, but values that are incorrect, because they still think that man has a power of women. And after this, the next step should be to, let's say, attract majority of, let's say, adult girls, future women, girls are future women, yes, and attention like that. You can, by training also, that you can change something. You can, you can't be only the victim. Yes, you should not be the victim, but you should be someone and a person who will be, let's say, perfect part of the society, who can also be, let's say, who would have something like, I don't want to be so banal, equal rights, but yes, why not equal rights, who can make decision in the specific place where she would be successful. Of course, successful includes knowledge and skills that this position requires. I don't know how I organized my speech to make you understand what I intend to say, but my point is that I quite agree with you. Only training from the primary things like, I mean, only training that you don't, for example, touch your wife and you don't touch your sister, because no matter she made something wrong to you or not, it is not enough to develop as a society. And I agree you that it has much more huge, longer term perspectives that will provide women to become, let's say, more powerful. But it will need time also from us as organization. I know that, and also it takes time to develop people as a part of society. Thank you for listening me, and if you have any questions, I can answer. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Sally. I think I'll go back to Anna's point. I think if we are looking at fundraising, couple of things that we'll have, is some things that I've read through in the readings and out of my experiences, that we'll have to clarify our goals and aspirations much more clearly. So if it is gender, if it is gender empowerment that we are talking of, and like we did in the last workshop, we'll have to exactly clarify
May
that
I
what
say something?
Yeah,
May I
yeah,
say something?
please, please.
Sorry for this rough interruption, but I thought that you asked me general idea, and that's why it was my response. On the other hand, as for, I mean, already written ideas, I have done, this project, let's say, disapproved, but I still submitted it with other organizations, and we are still looking for it. But I doubt that it will win because of this, let's say, what it is called, nepotism. But I have strategy as a project plan, if you mean that in concrete development, that as I mentioned, people tend to go to university and to take diploma because to show their future mother-in-law or father-in-law, it doesn't matter, boy or girl. I mean, it is reality. But these diplomas stay only papers, like a papers, and nobody needs them as a future workforce. Am I clear? So I have strategy and very good plan how to empower women by employing them in different fields, which is like let's say a composition of entrepreneurship and vocational activities. But the topic is very very huge, and it has huge volume and capacity. So I would stop here, and if you have any questions, I would answer. So, thank you.
Hello, can I ask, please, Sally, one question?
Sure.
Yeah, Sally, you are talking about trying and focusing on finding jobs in different fields for women to empower them, okay, to have their income, their
Yes.
personal income, to be strong, to be independent. That's
Sure.
very good. But what about we're not? I'm asking if you concentrate from the beginning about education. Education, I think, is the only weapon that can empower women, because with a good education, with good quality of education, a woman, the girl can be strong women in the future. Without education, it will, even she find any other jobs as a maid, especially here we have in developing country, girls are deprived of the right to educate, and they're obliged about because of the poverty of their family to go to work as a maid in the early age. Okay, so I think the violence of women to be deprived, the gender equality to be deprived of all their rights, it's because the only cause, the main cause, it's because of the lack of good education, of the quality of education. Before I find a job, I'm trying to help them. Okay, I should educate them.
Yes, if you mean in education that to increase the awareness how to live as a how to say, how in English, I forgot this word and I replace this with perfect, but I want to have something that is something definite, or something like when you feel that you are part of society. I forgot this word. Okay, but I quite agree with you. But as I understood, you mean this in this education to let's say enhance the awareness. I mean about her personality and her rights. Do you mean that's the same?
Yeah, maybe, but I mean more that that's a circle. I think I'm not closing my mic. Okay, I think it's about the the domestic violence and women to be deprived of men's rights when she grow up. It's about, it's the main cause. It's circle. Okay, we can't separate gender equality from reducing inequality, from education, good quality of education, to have to achieve that woman can be in her future, the girl, the kid, when she grow up, she become talented, she can rely on herself, she believes that man, it's not she's not slave for anyone. Okay, she know how to say no to the violence.
Can I come in? Sorry to interrupt. So I think this is in terms of discussion on theory of change, and I'll have to keep time. We just have another 45 minutes or so, or an hour or so before we wind up. So I think I mean, my takeaway is that we'll have to clarify, and as you rightly said, having a strategy plan, clarifying your mission, theory of change, I think is the first step and fundamental to fundraising. And while we can, take time in discussing that what exactly is the theory of change, but the assignment that we submitted was on definitely bringing in skilling, employment, and entrepreneurship for women, economically empowering them, politically and socially empowering them, so that they can be part of social institutions, part of political and economic institutions. So I think that's the theory of change that we've taken forward. So I'll just uh, want to move into the next phase. So if that's the theory of change, uh, an important question therefore would be to see that get into the funding model, or onto evaluating that who all are have been funding. So I think I'll just invite reflections from team members. So Asta, if you can just go up, I think can team members share their inputs on uh, who essentially have been funding their organizations and what ideas have they been funding? And also, Sally, if you've been able to raise certain funding, what are your initial reflections, very sharp, very quick reflections on who's been funding the kind of economic empowerment programs you've been doing? And I'll invite anyone to jump in on this. Yeah.
You mean I don't understand the last point, and I mean the latest question. The question is that if I decide to do proposal, do you mean that?
Right. So I think we can discuss.
Can I come in here,
Yeah.
Nanish?
Yeah.
So just to kind of make it simpler, because we are also doing it online. Generally, these activities are done physically in one room, so it's much easier. My suggestion is, like Anna had also, based on what Anna had said last time, we are picking Sally's organization as the case. So we fill this in considering or imagining that we are all working in Sally's organization, but we bring in the experience of our own organizations where we work with similar issues. That ways, by the end of it, we will be able to give and help Sally visualize a much broader where she can go. So Sally, if we can pose very directed, we can direct questions to Sally to help us fill this, and we all come in. I think that will be a much more faster way of doing it online.
Thank you, Pooja. I would say that maybe I'm trying to, let's say, exchange my ideas, but to tell you the truth, I frankly saying I'm not, let's say, I can't consider myself to be someone very professional proposal writer. Maybe my reality now, which I am talking about, is just seems like blah blah blah, but I have strategy and I need you to share it, and then you to help how to clarify it. I know that the project is not written like I'm talking now, that realistic examples, and I know it should be precise and adequate, but I'm just sharing you ideas that make you to think over for the better perspectives. And that's why
absolutely. But we don't expect you to have all answers, and that's where we will all as a team pitch in and help you.
Okay,
but you have to give us some cues and some hints based on the questions, like for example, who are your current funders? Then we will help you expand that. Manish, is that what you and Asta also had in mind? Great. So Nanish, over to you. Maybe you go each question. If Sally, you tell us who are the potential funders for your project. Then we will start populating the fund mobilization data, and at the end of this exercise, then you can see, oh wow, all of these funders exist for my project.
And who I consider to be potential funders, yes?
Yes, yes. Everything is future and wish list. So don't worry about what you are doing right now.
Okay. Yeah, I think European Commission, can I say this?
Yes, yes, of course you can say it.
European Commission, and also to tell you the truth, I am disappointed because I remember I didn't want to name organizations. Okay, I would name one. I once wrote to brought in people or something. It was in German, Bread for People, and I gave them my application about stray children, but nobody replied me. So I can't tell these separate, cannot comment these separate donors because I don't know them quickly, but European Commission is one, let's say, desirable funding that I would name, and maybe, I don't know. I have some in mind, but I don't want to tell it now because I think I can't hear you.
This is internal. We will not share it with anyone else. So, for example, I think not only the European Commission, but maybe the DFID would also be interested. So that ways we can tell you who are the other funders who are working in on this topic of women empowerment, and maybe not specifically in Georgia, but other places.
Yeah, Anna, any ideas? I mean, you've been raising funding, and with your experience, who could be the possible funders that we could actually pitch to?
Yeah, well, there is, for example, if there is a strong component on skills development, then you're looking at a different set of donors, and that's why it's important to, you know, what is the objective? Is it skills development and finding jobs, or is it human rights and the education on human rights? So I was a bit struggling with that. But in terms of potential donors for skills development, there are quite a number of foundations. There is Soros also, the Soros Foundation, which is OSISA, and I think they also work in that area of the world. I'm not too familiar with others that work in that area of the world. But there is definitely OSISA. Do you know what I'm talking about? Soros, the Soros Foundations? Let me just look for it for you.
Can you just spell it?
It's OSISA, but they have a section also in for Europe. So let me just look for that. It's the Soros Foundation, Soros as SOROS. Sorry, I had turned off my my browser, but let me look for that for you.
Okay, so
Soros,
while you look for it, could we also probably take a quick minute to understand their motivations for giving? So,
okay.
is 21st century skills that you mentioned something which these organizations that you mentioned, CESA Foundation, funding for?
Yes, it's OSF. That's the name of the foundation. I found it. It's the Open Society Foundation. And it was originated in Hungary, and it also works in Africa and other areas of the world. So I'm not sure if they operate in Georgia, but definitely that's the kind of things that they look at: human rights, empowerment.
May I say, Anna, as far as I know, Soros used to work here actively, but I'm not sure now if he has some organization, but I remember once I Googled and it has website in Georgian that this is, yeah, thank you.
Yes. Let me just Google now a number of others, because like I said, we don't work in that area of the world. So it's important that we also give information that is maybe applicable to that region. So I'll just do a quick search while you chat with chat, and I'll give you some feedback quickly.
Yeah, and also I think what is important, therefore, is that Sally, who's the one right now who's responsible for fundraising? I think, is it you, or do you have uh, one team member, two team members who can do all this activity? And so what are exactly the resources and capabilities in your team? Because that takes us to the next section, that uh, at the stage that you are in your organization, what is the fund, what is the donor that you need to pursue, and I think that's fundamental to this module, identifying the kind of donor that you need to pursue. So can you share uh, something about who's doing the fundraising activity for you right now, and what resources and capabilities do you have in your team?
You're asking me, yes? Your
Yeah,
voice
yeah.
has lost. Yeah, yeah. I've heard the final part. My resources and my, let's say, achievements in happens is that I'm working with only youth, but mostly my field is Erasmus Plus projects, and I've been a partner in many projects. But I would remind you that this organization is not very, let's say, very old, because it was established in 2019 on January, so it is just a year. But in this year, we have managed to have some voluntary activities, but at the same time, at the last on April's period, we submitted project about social entrepreneurship, and which was based on waste of environment. It was two, let's say, double activities that will be matched very well. And I remind you that we don't have national agency in Georgia, so I asked one of the partners of this project, Estonia, to submit this project. So they get this fund, but we are organizers, and this project should have, let's say, maybe should take place in October. I know that it is from October 9 till at the end of October, but it is a duration of actual. It is duration when we need to ask participants from 6 project partner countries to arrive in Georgia and to sit around the table and discuss these topics. And the participant will be 14, including Georgians. I can name also countries. There will be Cyprus, Malta, Estonia, Turkey, Georgia, and Spain. Yes, but 6 participants per countries, and it is our, let's say, very fresh achievement which we have managed so far by our resources. As for others, we have been partners in 3 projects. One was in Cyprus, 2 was in we are in Cyprus, and 1 was in Spain. And we also sent our youth people to exchange there to, let's say, upgrade their awareness of, let's say, informal learning style. And as for others, I also work at university and school, and I always try to collect people and to ask my colleagues who are qualified in civil, let's say, education, which is very important to discuss it. And I also have printed, let's say, materials like videos and photos. I also tried to make workshop with German colleague to my students about gender equality and violence, and I also made them to have this special activity. How do women need resist physical attack from to avoid this physical attack from men? Because I think that from the very beginning until our society will get into the shape as we want. They need also to protect themselves to these things, and only nice words are not enough for them.
Right. So, I think we can. Uh, Going back to what Anna's point was. So, Anna, I think what clearly appears that there's more towards, gender violence and gender-based violence, tackling gender-based violence through training, capacity building. That that Sally has in mind, and I think that's also the challenge that she's facing. Uh, uh, if we were to actually therefore identify the kind of fundraising mix that Sally's organization has to be. So Sally, can you give us some idea on the kind of money that you've been able to raise? I mean, just some figure, uh, and I assume that you've largely been working with volunteers. Is that right?
I don't understand the question. Sorry.
Sorry, maybe if someone has understood, can they rephrase? And Asta, did you get that? So Sally, what I was asking is that can you share share that have you been able to fundraise till now? Is there or are you largely working with volunteers, as you said, for your fundraising activities? Uh, and this takes us to the funding matrix. Asta, if you can just scroll down and pitch in Pooja, pitch in Anna, that this is the matrix that probably this is the fundraising map, so to say. And I assume that probably 1.5 year, 2 years down the line, what is the funding stream that Sally and Sally's organization needs to pursue? Uh, any quick thoughts and reflections on this?
I think Nanish, what Sally had suggested before was that she's starting the initiative now. She has had one round before, which was not very successful.
Yeah, with the EU, it's very difficult to get funding as a lead organization if you are a new organization.
Yes,
Yes,
I know.
if you are a new organization, the best thing for you to do is to apply with an organization that is very, has worked with them before, and you become a partner. Because they will not give you a grant, because for them it's very, very high risk to give a grant to a small organization that is just newly established. So that's one very important factor that you have to keep in mind. So you have to have a good CV before you can apply for EU funding yourselves as an independent organization. Otherwise, you always go to somebody else who is, for example, Save the Children. Maybe they operate in Georgia, I'm not sure, but you can sub-apply with them. So you present yourself to them and you tell them you want to be a sub-applicant for them in that proposal, and they can consider you for that. But you have to be patient, because once you're small, you're better off to work with foundations which are smaller and that give you smaller amount of money, because you are a high risk organization, in the sense that you're new. They don't know if you will be able to carry out the program. They don't know about the quality of your work. They don't know about your financials. So the best approach that I would take is look at which foundations are operating in Georgia, and apply to them. So smaller organizations, forget the EU for a while and apply to smaller organizations. I have found that there is, I think Siemens operates in Europe, in terms of skills development, but then we talked about gender-based violence. So I looked at Avon Foundation, one foundation that I found, Avon Foundation, but there's also many more. There is IKEA also that looks at gender and skills development. And there is another one, I think it's the H&M Foundation that also looks at skills development and gender. So you would need to do a proper search on foundations that work in Georgia and that you can apply to. They give you less money, but they're more interested in the risk than the EU is. Because you're very young.
Yes,
I think also
totally agree with you.
I think EU, when you say EU, it becomes very big. But there are some programs of the EU like the Erasmus Plus that allow smaller organizations to also partner with others and benefit. So of course you need to form a coalition or a consortium.
Yes, exactly.
Then it's possible. And as far as the private foundations are concerned, I think again you will have, because you are so new, the premise is that you have to form a consortium.
May I ask you something?
Yes, please.
Thank you. My cousin has an organization which was established many years ago, let's say 2004 precisely, and this organization is, let's say, not very active, but not passive. But he had several projects, and then he stopped. But actually, this organization is old, but not having history, let's say, and capacity to both, let's say, have done something, let's say, valuable. In these terms, we can also submit from this organization, you know, if it is more chance for us to succeed.
Can you say that again, Sally? I didn't understand. Sorry.
I say that we can also use this organization for submission, but it is old, but did not have something huge projects and small projects, but it is older than my organization. It is just my humble question. Maybe personally for me, I would better to submit from my organization to govern it better, but
yeah, that's a tricky one because you have to see how well organized your cousin's organization is, and you know the accountability issues regarding, you know, audits, financials. But also I would not myself partner with a relative on a program because there could be conflict of interest. You know, you can get into trouble for you know, it's a bit tricky. So I would not. I would probably look for another organization that I think is doing good work and make a partnership with them, work closer with them, and you know, do the consortium like Poja was mentioning, and submit together. And then after a while, they can also introduce you to their donors as well, because you do something that is different from them. So working together in your case is the best thing because you are very, very young.
may I ask you something, Anna?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you for these suggestions, and I will take it into consideration. At the same time, I have a question. How can I develop the strategy of linking? I mean, if I try to go to unknown people and say, "Hi, I'm Sally. My organization is registered," it doesn't work in Georgia because Georgia is very specific. Georgia is country that are like others, but we have, let's say, culture, character, or something similar. People everywhere are the same. How can I start to establish these kind of things? to suggest my proposal, or can you tell me the strategy?
Okay, one thing that I would do, and I think the other colleagues might also support in this, is I would look at LinkedIn. I would create a strong profile of my organization, my idea, and I would organize my LinkedIn account and start creating a network on LinkedIn. And then with that, I would ask the directors of other organizations for appointments. And then I would present them a profile of my organization and what I want to achieve and how I want to do it. And for that, it's very important you have a brochure or a one-page document which clearly outlines your strategy, your intervention, and your end goal, and what you're capable of doing. So if you have examples of things that you have already done, then you can also list those, sort of like a CV for your organization, and outlining what you can do. It's called a capability statement
Like
in
a
English. Yes, a capability statement where you're talking about what you can do, what you have done, and yeah. Mhm. But other colleagues might have some other advice as well. That's how I would approach it.
Yeah, but
I think from my experience of working in East Europe, one of the things that is required is you need to have somebody maybe who is a known philanthropist, or somebody who has the ability to maneuver the political system, being your, for the lack of a better word, your who steers you through the political corridors. I think that becomes a bit of a, how do I say it without sounding, that becomes a bit of a easier pass through the bureaucracy sometimes. So I'm not saying that you pick up anybody, but if there are some genuine philanthropists, and I see in the table above on the screen that is being shared here, there is also a column for wealthy individuals, which to my mind is one of those individuals who have these ability to maneuver the system. So ideally, philanthropist or somebody who is well known, well respected, and from them, once you go with them, then that builds your capability. What do you think?
may I say, yeah. Firstly, as for LinkedIn, to tell you the truth, I have this account, and from this LinkedIn, I have friends for many years who are representing organizations from abroad, but they are not Georgians. And even in this, let's say, foreign friends, maybe you can share your ideas in your business manner, and you can give email or something. They say, okay, let's change our ideas. And when I send emails, mostly when I, for example, 20 times they have done it, I had one or two reply, not positive, something like that. You are new and we don't have something, have to do something with you or any perspectives. It's very normal for me and doesn't irritate me because it is logical. But as for this philanthropic thing, I don't know. I don't have somebody in my mind. To tell you the truth, more or less, I have, let's say, tested lots of ways. We all know that it is not easy, but I'm sure 100% that one day I will do what I really want, because it is not only me. There was a question from, I forgot, I'm very bad at names, our manager of this day. Remains? Here, a person who manages our, sorry for forgetting
Sorry,
his
somebody is speaking very loudly in one of the backgrounds.
name.
Yeah.
Yes, and I would say that he asked me, he
Manish.
has asked me to reply or to tell about my stuff and my team is mostly, majority of them are from the university, and it is remarkable to say that we have done majority things, even didn't thought about opening organization, because we let's say saw this necessity, and that's why we have done things. So I have many people on my back who also tells me, Sally, give up, because no, you know, nepotism is ruling everywhere. They change. I don't want to start my primary, let's say, a monologue, which I have had shared to you from
I
the very
think, Sally,
yeah.
what do you think? So you have tried so many different ideas, and can you can the moderator please go back to that table above?
Oh, what is
I'll,
the last? Yeah.
yeah. So you must have tried a mix of this, you know, the different types of donors, foundations, you must have tried all of it. What do you think is your bottleneck, biggest bottleneck, that the reason, other than you are very new, that could be potentially, discouraging them from engaging with you? What do you think is the number one bottleneck?
It is not easy to answer this question, because inside of my brain I know the answer, but I will try to express it openly.
Just say what is inside your brain. Just
yeah.
say it like that.
Yes. Yes. I'm a very strange person somehow, but I always try to be open and sincere, because I can't remember any lies. I'm telling you that as for my, let's say, testing and trying, I cannot name you how many projects I have. Maybe it was very funny project, but I helped funny. I mean, not strong proposal, but no, to tell you the truth, no, because I has asked one person who is very successful, and he and me and one person also tried to write project about enhancing awareness of the same topic, but it was it was something endowment for Europe or something like maybe you know this network. It is funding in Georgia and in Europe, endowment of
Endowment fund. Yeah, I know. I'm aware of it.
yeah. And
Endowment fund.
in the yes, it is something I don't remember all fundings. I don't say that I'm, let's say, despair and I telling that, oh, but no, I'm a very, let's say, like a sea
What
wave.
do you think? What do you think was the barrier, the gap?
Barrier. Again and again, Georgia is very. I can't name Georgia because I have traveled a lot through Erasmus projects, and I concluded one thing: in every nation, there is something similarities that happens, and something unsimilarities that never happen. For example, I would say that here you should have someone, and you should be someone, and man's man, let's say, because you know it is something very maybe not acceptable for you to sell, but sometimes when I wanted to get something help from somebody, they wanted something in return that was unacceptable me as a woman and as a married person. Am I clear? And
That's I think a challenge which is so real that I think all of us at different stages have faced. And do you think communicating about your idea could be one of your challenges? How to communicate it with the funders in the most simplest of the way?
I cut it very short. Maybe I don't catch up what you mean now, but I would say one thing. When a majority of people in the world, by my observing, does not have initial and straight interest of something, and they don't get something in return, they don't care. And it is a moral of my vision that convenience and yeah, maybe there are some people talk very nicely and they talk how they help people, blah blah blah, but in reality not all people, of course. I can let's say count in my fingers. I know people from abroad that I really know they are honest and they really want to help people and they are doing this, and I know it. I don't believe that there are people like that and would be, but I'm very open by saying maybe it is rude from my side to tell, but in every country, in every steps I can come across, because actually I'm not very new in this NGO system, and here in Georgia, don't go so far, I have a very close relative who has an organization. She has a turnover more than million, and she asked me to help his son of something. I did it, but she even did not show me anything. She is hiding everything. It is one apparent example how people act. Maybe it is natural for some people. For me, it is not painful because I'm used to having this kind of cases, but I would try to find channel, and I promise you that I will find this channel. I know that when I decided to write down Erasmus Plus, I did it in 3 days, put up whole nights, and I made this application. And my boss, who is the head of these organizations, I am network, yes, told me that it is something like sorry for telling, but very bad thing. Words told it is like this, and I say okay, I would try. I tried and I got funding. When people disapprove me, I have huge motivation. Believe me, and sometimes I'm asking myself, Sally, what do you are fond of having these obstacles, and you get some additional energy that you really want, or do you really want success? Because you can't imagine how it is very challenging that people refuse you. To tell you the truth, I never feel discrimination from my animal side because I have very huge circle of friends, but these friends don't work in NGO system. They are separate people. But
So
I
Sally,
don't want to bother you.
yeah.
I have already done, I know, but it is what I mean now. That is problem. Maybe I'm doing something not correctly. It is also acceptable for me if you tell me straightly, because I know that I know nothing here, like Socrates says, but I really know that I know nothing. That's why I'm here.
Right. So Sally, I think as Anna and Pooja were sharing, so what appears is that probably, I mean, we need to focus on small donors
Yes.
and maybe, look at crowdfunding, look at partnership with smaller foundations, uh, peer-to-peer fundraising. I think you talked about young university children as your ambassadors. So I think it's important that given the kind of work that you have to do, looking at small donors, looking at that revenue stream, because it's a new startup as an organization that you need to look at. In addition, I'd like to share that there are organizations who are also funding so we've only talked about project funding, but in case you have to develop your organization, and as the module also clearly mentions, so there are other types of incubators, and there are other type of organizations who particularly function, who fund newer startups. So there are specific grants for building technology as a capability in your organization. There are specific grants for building your human resource as an organization. And then there are grants for projects. So I think that's how probably your funding stream, revenue stream for for new organizations who are, in 1 to 5 years, that's the time that it will take probably organizations to stabilize, uh, uh, that we need to probably, these were my quick reflections. And I also feel that there is a lot of potential. And Anna, please come in, Pooja, that high net worth individuals, is something that you should also have in mind, say maybe a year, 2 year down the line. And for that, I think what's important is that you build a strong network, someone, who comes in as part of the board in your organization. Maybe, Pooja, Anna, who are there in Europe, Zambia, who are connected to multilateral organizations, and then therefore can help you leverage some of the work with small donors or high net worth individuals. So largely, I think, uh, Sally, that's where, next 3-4 years, given the plan, has to be. And if we can therefore go into, uh, uh, I think we have 15 minutes before we close, Astha.
Yeah, we have
Right.
another 15 minutes.
Right,
That's
right,
okay
right.
with.
Right. So I think we are largely done in terms of, because the other section is largely to evaluate the kind of fundraising portfolio that you have, and uh, but quickly, I think, if we can, but I don't think so that will be relevant right now, because we are understanding that the organization right now is in the startup phase. Uh, so. Uh, I think some next steps, and I would like to hear from team members. So one, that module 2 has been divided into 2 workshops. So the other part of the workshop looks at, reviewing certain peer organizations, and looking at their fundraising model through this lens, that the Bridgestone, that the this model has given. So do you think that we do that peer review and fill our assignments online, or do we have another workshop uh, uh, for that? Uh, any quick thoughts on this, Pooja, Anna, Sally?
I don't know. Actually, maybe we should have a go at doing it individually, and then we have a recap session next time.
Okay.
But just as a proposal, I don't know how you feel about it, how others do.
I think what will be useful, and this is going to fast track the process also, and I would love to hear what Dhova and Sally also have to say on this. What we could do is, if you could give the three questions in a simple Word document and share it with us, then based on today's discussion, I think we already have quite a headway. We can answer the 3 questions offline, and then do a quick call next week to, or we can just do it online through the chat, agree the answers, and then move to the next module, because we kind of we move to the next workshop. I think that would be better.
Okay. So I feel that will be better. I'll go with you, Pooja. I think we'll circulate. I think the next part of the workshop largely is based on researching peer organizations, because given that you've understood the framework, I think it now boils down to identifying, based on the work that Sally wants to do, if we could do some peer review and research. And I think I and Asta can circulate those 2 questions on research, as well as the assignment questions. And once the research is done, I think with the discussion we have had today and the research, the assignment is not very difficult. I think I and Asta can take a shot at completing the assignment. What do you say, Asta?
Yeah, I agree. When I think today.
Wonderful.
I think the question is, we just have to answer one question: peer organization research and selecting a funding source. My suggestion again is that if Sally, you can fill in this table, take a attempt at filling this table, then rest of us can give inputs, further inputs on who else can be tracked. And then from there we can go through the rest of the process. What do you think, Dawwa?
Toa, you are on mute. If you're speaking, you are on mute.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I think I totally agree with you, Buja. I think the most important here it's promotion. To have a good funder, okay, it's the promotion of to have a strong CV and to many followers on LinkedIn. I think it's the best social media, as Nanish said. Okay, I agree with this because if we have a goal, if we have something a goal that we want to achieve as Cell is I don't know, it's perfect goal for me, okay, to defend women. So I think the most important thing is to find a good funder that believes on her statement, and he agreed to help her. So promotion, I think for the beginning, promotion, not beginning, after she have the strong CV, to focus on her idea, statement, as Nanish said, okay. So promotion, I think it's the best thing that she it can help her to find a good funder that he can support her association and help her.
So that table, I'm very fascinated by that table for some reason. Can you please go back there in that table? Yes, this one. Yeah. So my suggestion, again, Sally, if you fill some of it, all of us also do some Google research through our knowledge. We fill this. I think this is the basis of the answer, isn't it?
Yeah.
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 So it will take not more than 15-20 minutes for each person.
Yeah.
And then we quickly do the rest of the things. We can do it offline.
Do you mean it now?
No, not now. Later on, we Nanish will share a document and
Okay,
we
fine.
can all fill in.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
And then the next week we can move to module 3, Nanish.
Yeah. So yeah, do we yeah, for the next module, do we decide the date? Is it 24th? We do the next module. Does that work?
Which is Friday again and the same time.
Yes. What is the final deadline for this? I forgot this course.
I think it's 18th August.
Yeah, so we also have to move fast now because we've kind of taken a break in between.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of things that we were also discussing in the
I didn't hear you. Could anybody else hear her? Asta?
No. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me all right?
Anna, can you put yourself on mute, please?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I was just mentioning that in the coming modules, we are going to discuss communication and storytelling, which is also going to be very helpful and relevant for Sally. I think for today's workshop, the idea was to get the communication, like, get us started on thinking about fundraising and just do this exercise of identifying what works best for Sally's organization. So filling up this funding matrix, I'm just showing it again. This one would be very helpful. Other than that, we've made some notes. This document, everybody will have access to it, and we'll just clean up, and I'll make some notes offline as well. So I'll add those, and others who would like to add their comments or anything else can add to this document. But it'll be good to have these working notes with us if we want to go back to it at some point.
So, therefore, thanks, Asta. So, for the next workshop, any volunteers? Dawa?
I propose you both continue with this so that you take us through this module.
Yes, it will be my pleasure. But I need a partner, okay, to help me.
Yeah. So Doha and Anna, partner or volunteers for this. It'll be good. Doha or Asta, partner. Okay, wonderful. Okay, here we go. So
Super.
Next Friday, module 3, Dawa and Asta to take it forward. I will share the next steps in an email on the document that we need to fill, and we'll try and probably use the weekend to fill it if it is possible, and try and complete the assignment by Sunday if that works for all. It will not take more than 10-15 minutes of each one's time, and then therefore another half an hour for me and Asta to clean it. So I think that's all from my side. We have 8 minutes before we wind up. So any final reflections, thoughts, Asta? Any special checkout prompt? Or how are we? Yeah, how is the hal?
Doing now. I would love to hear from everyone.
Yeah, I think that's a great step, having this table filled out, and it's good that if there's some substantial research that's being made by the organization, by Sally's organization.
I can't hear you now. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me better now? It's a noisy
Yes,
building. Yeah, I was saying having this table is excellent for them. I can share another table format that we have as well that we use for our pipeline, which also gives you details about whether they want a proposal or whether you have to be introduced to them. All those things that are very important as you do your fundraising plan. And it's important that the organization does this research locally. So we can give some tips and ideas, but indeed Georgia is not something that we're familiar with. But what I'm trying to say is Sally needs to be supported by somebody who can do this research and can do this in a systematic way for the future, not for the assignment, but for the future.
If I may, what I can offer and to find out is we have a very big presence as GIZ in Georgia. Once we have formalized this, maybe if we can, I would be happy to invite someone from my team in Georgia to have a look at it and give some comments to Sally on whether that something like this makes sense. So if you want Sally, but then we have to be really very organized in that sense.
Yeah.
You have to be making a kind of a pitch. I don't know, pitch or maybe something like a, and then I can invite someone from GIZ Georgia to come in and give more inputs.
That's wonderful. Yeah, and you see, you know somebody from GIZ. I've just realized indeed that you also work for GIZ in Georgia, and they do skills development. So even advice on the structure of the proposal and all that, whether it makes sense, whether the theory of change is solid enough, whether, for example, there is a link to the market, to the entrepreneurship, or to the, to the private sector. If that's strong enough, that kind of advice would be very good, I think, for her to receive. So that's wonderful, I think.
I'm not promising, but I'm promising to try.
May I say like a very brief comment? First
Yes,
of all,
please.
it's very funny that I'm asking you to find Georgian to connect, but no, it is in business. It is very successful step. On the other hand, because in spite of the fact Georgia is very small, we don't have access to all people because, well, anyway, it is population more than 3 million. So, and my little, very brief and very sincere and heartful thank you to all of you. I don't want to separate you that for listening me and for trying to supporting me, and thank you for this possibility. I can't express my gratitude. It is for me very huge support, and if something let's say will happen by this effort or not, I appreciate it anyway, and it means for me huge, because I think in the world only two things matters. It is kindness, which is connected to second love, and if we do this too without without any convenient and in the right way, I think it is worth for living. So I don't know how I make you understand what I mean now, but I know one thing. Thank you, thank you,
I can
thank
tell you. I can tell you how you can make us understand. Please fill the table and share with us.
you. Okay. But if I have any extra questions, what can I do?
Fill the table and
There
share
you
with
go,
us.
Pooja.
Sally,
I promise I will do for sure, but it does not mean that I'm idle and I did not respond to previous emails. Yeah.
No, Sally, I'm joking. Please,
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah,
Friday
yeah.
evening. You have to allow me to
It's
joke.
very, yeah, yeah. I love your
My
job.
internet is bleeding.
Okay, okay. You make me smile. Thank you for this.
yeah, but adding to what Pooja was saying, I think you will also enjoy reading the case studies. I think they will be very relevant whenever you find time, as and when you can. Just give it a read. You'll enjoy it.
Okay, any last things, Astha, that we need to take care of before we wind up? Last couple of minutes. Yeah, Pooja,
The
please.
platform. Do we continue to meet on Teams? I think this was more stable.
Yeah, if it
Yes.
works. Yeah.
Then already Doha and Asta, you are the moderators for next time. So please share the link for
link.
Teams.
Yeah.
Sounds good?
Yes.
Sounds
Sounds
If,
good.
I'm just quickly recapping what we need to do in terms of next steps. Sally is going to share with us the funding matrix that hopefully you can still see on my screen. And we are also going to try and fill in based on our research. Is that correct? And then we are just going to clean up this document and share with everyone this piece of document, and along with that, we are also going to share with everyone the prompts for the assignments that we need to submit for module 2. And that will bring us to the end of the module 2. And for module 3, Doha and I would be conducting the workshop next week, Friday, 24th of July, around the same time. So Doha and I will be in touch this week to ensure that we, get our everything is in place for that. I think that's about it. I hope everybody else has submitted their assignment for module 1, which Pooja, thank you very much, very succinctly shared at the end of it. So I hope you've had the chance to submit your individual assignment. And then we'll move to module 3. And I hope everybody's hearts are doing well. So that's it from me. Hope we all enjoy our Friday evening.
I want to
yeah.
ask for all the friends to Nanish to stop sharing, that we can take a screenshot, okay? Because we can take a screenshot without when he's sharing. Okay, who's taking a screenshot, please?
can do it. Anna, would it be possible for you to turn on your video? We haven't seen you today. Pooja, you're saying something. I'm sorry, you were on mute.
Sorry, I have some people in the background, so I can't take that.
Sally, you have to put your phone in the background. Sally? We can't see.
Sally, is it possible for you to move your phone forward or put yourself?
Your phone.
Yeah.
About
Very nice. Okay, are we ready? All smiles. I'm going to take a screenshot. Keep smiling. There you go.
Ah,
One more. I didn't see a lot. Oh, there you go. Yeah, just one more. Everybody just smile. Keep smiling. Yeah.
Well done.
Okay then. All right, everyone. Take care.
Thanks. Have a nice weekend, and thank you so
You
much for
too.
getting us organized.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Thanks,
Bye.
thanks
Have a
everyone.
nice
Thanks,
weekend.
Manish.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Akhtar.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you. So.